So hey YouTube, a couple weeks prior to this, I had gone down to Uwari and I banged up the Gladiator a little bit. I hit the sway bar link with a rock, and that seems to happen quite a bit to me. I've bent one before, but I tore the sway bar link bracket that's mounted against the frame, and so I did some research to discover an alternative, and I found this one, and I think this is a really great option for any JT owners, and I believe it applies to JL owners as well. So I do apologize, though. I had a bronchial infection, and it was a very hot, muggy day, and it seemed to affect my voice a little bit. I think I edited out most of my coughing and wheezing, but anyways, hopefully you'll enjoy this install video. After my last four-wheel drive trip, we went down to Uwari, came home and discovered that this bracket had torn out for my sway bar. And this is the second time that I've hit. Jeep, unfortunately, has got all of this hardware hanging down low, the shock mount and the sway bar links, and they tend to attract a lot of rocks. So when you're in the rocks, this is a common thing for Gladiator owners. I believe that JL owners have the same issues, and these brackets are not super quality. So the first time I hit this, it did a little damage to the bracket, but it wasn't too bad. And it bent the sway bar itself, the sway bar link here. It was a great big bend here, so this is actually a new one. This time I hit it and it actually tore the bracket completely apart. So there's a couple different options here. So I looked at a rock jock option, and it's a great option. It gets it up out of the way a little bit, makes it less susceptible to rocks, but it's also expensive. That runs like $1,300, $1,400. And I was looking for something that was maybe a little bit cheaper. So I actually run across a what I think is going to be a great option, and it's fairly inexpensive. So I was doing some searching on the Gladiator forum, and I ran across a mention of these. So this is Metalcloak, and I own a lot of Metalcloak gear. My lift kit and my shocks are all Metalcloak. This is a very nice bracket. Look how thick and beefy that is. What this does is it mounts up to the frame with these bolts here and extends out, so you can use it as a new mounting bracket for the sway bar links. So a pair of these was only $80, and I think it's a very inexpensive, high quality upgrade that will prevent that from happening again. So I'm going to go ahead and get these installed. I also had planned on doing a tire rotation today. It'll make it a little easier. I don't think you have to take the tire off to get to this, but it's probably going to help me a little bit. So I'm going to pull the tire. But yeah, it gives a lot better access in here. You can see all the mud still left over from Uwari, and I pressure washed this. So yeah, it's pretty banged up. So basically I have to remove these two bolts, then insert the plate over top, bolt it back in, and then I use the replacement bolt. Since there's a bolt that's supposed to be on the back of this that ripped loose as well, then I use their replacement bolt that they send with it. So I mangled this when it came loose. The boot got mangled up, so I'm going to, I had an extra one. When I purchased these, I bought a pair, so I've got a brand new one. So the new one's here, and they've got some pretty good directions that come with the kit that show the tools needed and exactly how to mount this thing. So basically you need, at a minimum, you need the socket, wrench, you need the 13 and 19 millimeter socket plus a 19 millimeter wrench. If you're like me and you're a little lazy, or you just like power tools, because both of those apply to me, I always use my my power tool set. But minimum tools, just the 2 sockets, the socket wrench and the open end wrench. So your 13mm socket, remove these. So once you've got the 2 bolts removed from the frame, this piece is loose here. It's got a wire loom attached to the top of it. But you take this with the flare outward, you set it on top of the frame, and you see it lines up perfectly with this. And I'll pull that piece loose with a wrench. I'll just break it off. I'm going to leave the bolts in place just because I think it provides a little extra stability for it in the future, because that's going to provide upward. It doesn't necessarily say, it says you can leave them or remove them. But for my purposes, I think it'll be perfect just leaving them there. And then all you do is reinstall the bolts. Loosely. There you go. As you can see, that was nice, quick, and easy. All I have to do is reinstall the sway bar link itself, and I'm good. Just said the kit includes the bolts and nuts, just in case the nut's broken off the back side of this, which is fairly common like mine is. On the other side it's intact. I may just use the bolt that's there rather than tear that thing apart. But you've got the bolts, the washers, and the nuts. So get that new sway bar link installed. The sway bar link bolts are 19mm. I'll torque those up to spec. You're going to have to bend the sway bar itself up a little bit to get that to mesh. I'm going to take the supplied bolt with the washer, feed that through, bend that up, and I'll put the washer and the nut on the back side. And we'll get the wrench up on the back side of the nut. Tighten that down. And then I will torque those to spec and we'll be good. So the torque spec on the frame for this is 90 foot-pounds. All right, 90 foot-pounds. And on the bottom it's 60. And 60. Alright, so I tightened up the bolts on the frame. I got the bolts on the sway bar link itself tightened up to spec, and we're ready to go ahead and just put the rear tire on, then I'll start on the other side. So it turns out that on the back side there's flats that will fit a 19mm wrench, so I just got the wrench on the back side of it to pull the bolt loose. if you notice here, there's a slight crack right there, so that was gonna drop out regardless at some point. So good thing I decided to replace it. On this side, there's this piece, which is different from the passenger side, and this is some kind of a heat shield. I assume because of the exhaust. I'm not sure, and I've read online a lot of people are questioning whether it does any good or not, but people have had problems getting this bracket fit up with this, so I'm going to give it a shot to see. That didn't seem to pose any problems at all. I think the heat shield is supposed to go underneath the frame bracket, but I figured the frame bracket's probably more important piece than the, well, actually I don't think either of them are super important, but anyway, so they both fit. I got no fitment problems. It lines up perfectly, so all I got to do is install the sway bar link. So when I checked the thread to make sure I could fit it through here, it didn't want to go, and it turns out that these threads are damaged. So what I did is I took an extension, two extensions actually, and these are just the little 1/2 inch, and I just, all you've got is this metal lip here pressed into the back of this. So I just set this here and took my BFH, banged down it a couple times, and it popped that nut right off, and I'll use the bolt and nut that came with the bracket to reattach it. Alright, so it took a little bit having to knock that inner nut off, but once I did, then this went together really well. Torque to 90, torque to 60, everything looks good. So the bracket's been tightened back up and everything is rock solid. So it looks phenomenal, and I think that that's going to do a lot. Now when I hit this on a rock, it'll just bend the link, but oh well. better than tearing off a bracket. So YouTube, hopefully some of you will find this useful. I think it's a great option, really easy install. Probably the only things that really can go wrong is you'll have problems getting that that upper part of the link off, because that the stock bolt is just a round nut that's pressed into the metal and it spins, so you typically have some problems. The last time I replaced one of these links, I had the same issue. I recommend just doing what I did and just popping them out. I like the option to have the nut and bolt that are supplied with this bracket instead of that anyways. And then I did have some issues getting the lower ball joint nut off, but then I discovered that the 19-inch wrench would fit the flats on the back side of it. You just have to be careful not to tear up the boot. So I think this is a fantastic option. It's one of the cheaper options out there, and I think that anybody should go out and do this right away if they wheel their Gladiators or JLs at all, and prevent being forced into doing this on a hot, muggy day. Just do it in advance. It can't hurt. I think it really strengthens a very terribly constructed bracket, and it will provide benefits down the road. So hey, thanks for watching. Give me a like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and we'll see you next video.